Hello friends, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome! Today we're going to talk about something that I think gets discussed quite a bit, but not everybody understands this little concept that we often come up against in role-playing games, and I think that the knowledge of it kind of hurts people's understanding a bit. So today I'd like to talk about the topic of sandboxes. Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Now, what is a sandbox? I mean, literally, what is a sandbox? It is a box of some sort, a container with sand in it. That's it. It's like the simplest child's toy, but can be incredibly imaginative. With just nothing more than, say, 4 2x4s and a bunch of sand, a child can spend nearly an unlimited time if they're so inclined to do so. You can dig in the sand. You can take toys and bury them in the sand and play in the sand. A little bit of water and the sand will stay where you put it. And it will dry out eventually. Cats love them, but don't let cats get into sandboxes. They tend to do things that you don't want in a sandbox that a child plays in. That's why those turtle ones have covers on them to keep animals out. But I, as a child, had a sandbox that had no cover in it, and let me tell you, cats love them. Anyhow, a sandbox is an unlimited imagination toy. You can bring anything from outside the sandbox into the sandbox and use it as part of your game or part of your fantasy world that you're creating within the sandbox. You have access to anything that you can think of that you can bring from outside. Cardboard boxes or tools from gardening or all of your action figures if you don't mind getting sand in them. All sorts of things can be brought into a sandbox because it is ultimately the perfect canvas for imagination. Well, the idea behind a sandbox in a role-playing game kind of follows along similar ideas in general. The idea being that you take a place and you put the players into that place to do seemingly whatever they want, is the idea behind a sandbox that a lot of people understand. It's like, okay, we're going to do the city of Waterdeep, sandbox style. I got the old box of Waterdeep, City of Secrets or something like that, and I've got maps, and you guys can go anywhere and you can do anything. And that might sound really appealing. It does to me. But then again, I'm an immersive kind of player, and I would love to go up and down the streets exploring every restaurant. Especially if I've got a pocket full of gold, explore all the restaurants, try different things. If I have a GM who can keep up with me and they want to bend their imagination to making that come to life, hey, cool. I could lose myself in that fantasy easily enough. And I'd have a hell of a time doing it if the game master knew what they were doing. But that's not really what most people think of when they are thinking, or that might be what people think of when they're thinking of a sandbox, but that's not really honest to goodness a D&D style sandbox or a Savage World sandbox or whatever game you're playing. Because a sandbox also has interesting things in it. It has toys. It has other things that make it more gripping, more fun. So, could you come into a blank sandbox with no toys? Yeah, you could. And that gets fun for a little while. You can play like that for a little bit, sure. But is it something that's going to ensnare you, that's going to absolutely draw you in for hours and hours and hours? No! A kid with only a sandbox is going to go in there for like 10 minutes. They're going to scoop as deep as they can to get to the bottom. They might make this big sand dune, and then, done. It loses its appeal. Unless, again, you're really good at bringing a pre-made world to life. Yeah, players want something to do. They don't necessarily want just to have to make their own entertainment out of things. And that's totally fair. That's how we are. We come to a game because we want that entertainment. And sometimes exploration is a part of entertainment, yes, but that should lead one thing to the other. If we are exploring a dungeon, by exploring a section, we create an area that is known. And that, by process, eliminates part of the dungeon for whatever we're really looking for in that dungeon, or concentrates. If we don't find anything in that room or anything of any value, then all of the dungeon's treasure is further in there yet. And that means that there's more that we can do. That's fun. If there was a sandbox, and again, completely open, that you could just do whatever you want, but there's nothing driving you or impelling you, that's going to be a really, really boring sandbox. Even in an amazing fantasy world that the Game Master is bringing to life. Now, sure, there are people who are very good at freeform roleplay or improvisational roleplay, and they can take an open city and they can do some things to make it entertaining, yes. But generally, players like to have things that are ready for them to do. So, if, say, you want to be in Waterdeep, then if you're going to sandbox it, there's always something to do in Waterdeep. So, they have a lot of festivals, carnivals, crafting events, things like that. There's always something to do in Waterdeep by design. It's not just in service of story, it's, there because, hey, you got a lot of people, you've got to entertain them somehow, so there's got to be things for them to do too. It makes the world live and breathe if there's stuff going on. And different players and different players' characters may attach to different things. Those things that players can attach to and attach some importance to are called hooks. They are something that players get a hold of, they are hooked, and therefore drawn into something that is greater than themselves. This gives them what I like to call a vector, a direction and a velocity that they move. Is it something that they find to be absolute dire urgent? Then it's going to be a very strong vector in the direction of pursuing whatever that hook was. And that can be very, very useful. It can be used to sidestep any number of lesser distractions. Hey, Mr. Paladin or Mr. Cleric, your temple is on fire. Oh, you're going to run over to your temple? Okay, cool. I've just given you a very strong vector for that character. It makes sense, and who knows, maybe it's in service of something else that I have in mind for the story that fire started. It certainly is a very compelling hook for that character, perhaps, to get them to go and respond and maybe come into contact with some element that I have waiting for them so that they can be drawn into something else other than just where do we go next. Because once you get to that where do we go next, if there's no single importance to any choice, then again, it could just be ticking off boxes. It might just be, okay, your turn to decide, I don't care. You don't want ennui. You don't want people to have no great motivating factor. You want the characters at least to care about something. And if the characters aren't very well designed to have goals and motivations that they are pursuing rigorously, then you need something more. But a hook by itself, what is a hook? It's a little curved piece of metal, hooks into you, metal, bone, whatever you're making your hook out of, but it hooks into you. It provides a spur, but a hook by itself is nothing. A hook just gets players' interest. Then, what happens next? The line. What is the course that is impelling them? What is the steps that they have to make to get to the thing that is hooking them? And it requires participation. In the case of the burning temple, oh no, fire at the temple. The line is, we're going to go to the temple. Great. And maybe when you get there, you can do something to help at the temple. Or you can find the temple is completely burned down. Whatever you need to do as a game master to continue telling the story. But there is a story there, even in the middle of this sandbox. So, they get there, they followed the line, they're there at the temple. The the high priestess thanking them for helping them to put out the fire. The temple has been saved. Now comes the thinker. Why did the fire start? Who set the fire? If there's no payoff, there's no thinker to it that draws them into anything more, then it was just something for them to do. And that's cool. There's always going to be things to do, and not all of them have a payoff. But if there's a thinker, now the players are going to find something that is going to compel them onward. Perhaps into another direction. Maybe that is where they find a calling card for a notorious thief, and now this becomes personal. Now they're attacking your temple. Aha! Now my players are compelled to go and investigate, and this becomes something a little bit wider. Now it actually becomes more like a traditional adventure because they have a goal. Aha! They have a payoff at the end. Figure out what's going on with this thief. Does he need to be brought to justice? He needs to be stopped from setting my temple on fire? Yes. Maybe he has to die? Who knows? It's all part of the story. But the players will only find that out when they follow the hook, the line, and grab a hold, and the sinker takes effect. And that is something that's common in a sandbox. It's not breaking the rules of the sandbox. The players still have choice. Along the way, they could just say, well then, cleric, maybe you should go and hire some adventurers to go and take care of that, but we're currently doing something else. Perfectly valid in a sandbox. As a game master, you have to acknowledge that if you have an entire world for the players to explore, they may not go after the direction you want them to. Although, you may try to compel, and if you do, players may start kind of flinching at the railroading vibes that you're giving off. And for those of you who do not know, railroads basically are a linear adventure where the players do not have choices to vary from the tracks. They are going to go scenario to scenario to scenario to scenario to scenario. And sometimes that has a bad stigma, but more often than not, it leads to a tighter narrative. It makes it easier for the game master, too, if they only have to worry about the scenarios they've already plotted out or they already understand. Sandboxes can be very intimidating because the players may choose not to grab onto the hooks that you leave behind. It is a little bit more challenging way of playing. But the important thing is the players can feel the world being a little bit more real. That their characters have license, that they have choices, and their choices matter. And they may not always be the right choices either. Sometimes they can have the freedom to make bad decisions. If the players say, I am playing as Joe Cleric, I got my Mesa Disruption right here, and the High Cleric is like, geez, somebody's trying to burn down our temple. We suspect it's Eustace the Black. His calling cards are all over this. I want you to go and find Eustace the Black and bring him to justice. And you could be like, wow, that sounds like the kind of thing you should hire a party for. I'm just a cleric and I got stuff to do. I'm on holiday. I'm going off and I'm doing things. I don't have time to go after your Eustace the Black. Just, keep an eye out, make sure he doesn't get back in here to start a fire and get somebody to fix that. The guards are supposed to fix things like that, aren't they? I'm not a guard. I'm a cleric. I don't have to do this job. And you leave. Will it have consequences? Maybe. That's another video we're going to do about worlds having consequences, but in this particular case, there could be really dire consequences. Maybe the temple does burn down again, this time for real. Maybe at some point, the cleric decides to reprimand you in front of all of the other faithful, saying, you were given an opportunity by your deity to come forth and serve, and you chose not to selfishly. Sure, as a game master, that's a possibility too. But a sandbox should not be assumed that it's just a map and here you go. Now, a sandbox for some people might resemble something, at least in their concept of a sandbox, might resemble something that used to be more common in gaming back in the day. It's still, some people are still trying to hold the tradition, and that's called a hex crawl. The idea of that is the world is unknown. It is vast and generally broken up into grids so that we can more accurately map it, but hence hexes. Overland maps are often expressed in hexes rather than a square grid. But so that the players can explore, determine the major feature of a given area, anything interesting in that area, like a ruin or a den of monsters or something, and try to tame that area or deal with the challenge in that area, and then move on and keep exploring, and eventually they'll have a neat map of the area as they go through point by point within the overall world. A sandbox can seem like that if you're doing a crawl through Waterdeep. I have several Waterdeep maps. If I just put it down and say, all right, where are you going to go now? And that will seem like a sandbox. And it certainly may be a sandbox. At the very least, if the players, start to know different places, they know what they like, they know the tavern they like to drink at, they know the restaurant they like to eat at, they know where their home is, which might be represented on the map, giving some ownership. They know interesting locales, like these absolutely enormous statues that are posted around the city as landmarks. And yeah, I know they're more than that. We'll just go with this. They know where the castle ward is and all the interesting people in the city that they might want to talk to who have a lot of money and influence. Sure. They will learn the city. They will have preferences and things like that. And that does make it seem more like real life, too. I mean, in your hometown, you probably have a favorite watering hole or a favorite restaurant or a place that you go to regularly, be it a church, be it a supermarket, be it whatever. That makes your world real to you, that you have things that you are comfortable with, that you know and understand. And players can come to that same feeling if the world lives and breathes around them, certainly. But a sandbox gives them that latitude that they can go from place to place without feeling like, I've got something over my head that I can't get rid of. I have to deal with that before I have the freedom to spend all this money I'm toting around and wield the advantages of the powers and skills that I possess. A sandbox gives you that freedom, which can be cool. It can be very cool. I mean, if you've played in a campaign and your character's like 12th, 13th level, you can administer death on command to so many of the people around you. You are so powerful. Beyond the understanding of your basic layperson, possibly. Even if you are a fighter that's 12th level, the amount of butt you can kick until your boots start smelling of butt. You can just go on and fight on and on and on. And when you start talking about spellcasters, it just gets ridiculous. But have you ever played in a campaign where that actually helps you in a day-to-day? Oftentimes, we only see those characters for what they are. They're ridiculously overpowered combat abilities that allow them to take on bigger and bigger creatures. But what does that mean in their day-to-day? Well, it probably means a lot of things they can't do, because when they go to a tavern, for instance, and a bar brawl breaks free, hey, how many of those 4th level spells can you use inside of a tavern brawl without killing people? Oh, my Circle of Death is right out. 6th level, I could kill how many people with it? No, can't. So what are you going to do, wizard? Roll up my sleeves and punch a guy. Because my ability to punch is just as good as anybody else's at my level. Except, maybe they're musclier or something. So yeah, there are definitely advantages to Sandbox. Immersion can be one strong one of them, where you don't feel like you're being led all the time, but there are definitely things you should and should not do. Just like perhaps you in your day-to-day, you do have the freedom to go wherever you like and do whatever you, at least for the time being. But you probably should go to your job. You probably should pay your bills. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. Well, kind of like that in a sandbox. You do have things that you probably should do, probably could do. If you're in that blessed situation where you don't have limitations on what you can do because you're outside of the society a bit, hey, you have more latitude. Shop owners love you. You're the kind of person who, your average person doesn't buy a sword every day. An adventurer might buy a sword because that is one of their useful, things in their profession. So sword crafters are going to love you, and they don't care so much about the average Joe pint of ale. But you're an adventurer, and you're cool. And a sandbox allows you to celebrate that. Again, the general gist of what you're shooting for in a sandbox is choice or the illusion of choice. If you dangle so many hooks around your players, they're almost certain to eventually bite on something. And if you have a sandbox and only one clear avenue to going into any kind of a story, it's going to feel pretty empty, except for that one glowing arrow over there, that beacon that tells me I should go here to continue the quest. And is that really a sandbox? Well, you might be in the sandbox and then there's the quest over there. You can ignore, perhaps, but the idea of a sandbox adventure should have things for the players to do. It should have ideas for the game master that the players can latch on to. It's just you are under the almost obligation to have more ready at any given moment, or be ready to improvise like heck, to give your players a satisfactory resolution to what they might turn their heads to. And is that something that I would recommend a novice game master try? It might be a bit much. Just saying. But is it rewarding? Can be. Can be very rewarding. Again, oftentimes easier to immerse yourself, oftentimes gratifying where you can actually enjoy your character's day-to-day life to a certain extent. Yes. Harder on the game master? Yes. More NPCs to portray, perhaps. Probably. But sandboxes in general are not devoid of stuff. There's toys in there. There's stuff in that sandbox. And the players are free to look in and give credence to certain things as fits their characters. And, again, run the risk of completely sidestepping what you thought they were going to go after that you so carefully laid out for them. Maybe they take that moment to enjoy their freedom and just say, no, not today. Not today. We're going to go in this direction instead. That's a sandbox for you. So, I hope this makes a little bit more sense of the concept of sandboxes for you. They are not necessarily as intimidating as some game masters think they might be. And it is true, a linear railroad is much easier to run than a sandbox typically is. By far. Because you don't have any surprises. You know where everything's going to go. Even a guided railroad, where the players can diverge and go off side questing, but in general have a pretty clear path forward, is easier to run than a true sandbox. But if you run a sandbox successfully and your players really buy in and they really make your world better, it can be even more of a shared world building experience where the players decide where the focus of the camera is going to go. And they reveal and highlight the certain areas of your particular sandbox area that they're interested in, which makes you, as the game master, narrate that area out and flesh it out and bring it to life. That can be extremely rewarding. And take you to some places you weren't expecting. Expect sewers. They always end up in sewers for some reason. I don't know why. But that's my suggestions for sandboxes. I know, some people will still look at sandboxes and go, that's still a bit much. And, that's fair. I'm not going to tell you ever that any aspect of game mastering is easy, because certain people will find it to be hard. And I would hate to tell somebody that they are, subnormal because they find an aspect of a way of running a game difficult. It's not. It's wide open for a variety of people to enjoy in different ways. But sandboxes aren't necessarily as scary as they may seem, too. Just as long as you have numerous things available for your players to do. Whether that means having a stack of modules, and if you want to go here, you can do this module. You want to go here, just like a hub world. You could do that. But in general, your improv skills should generally be a little bit better if you're going to tackle sandboxing, because you're going, random characters that the people bump into might actually be somebody that you would like to roleplay as and give a little bit more life to something, or dump a little lore on a player, or guide them to a hook, or be the hook. Who knows? It's all whatever you want to make out of it. As a game master, you can let the sandbox be as open as you want or as closed as you want. You can dangle dense numbers of hooks over them. You can leave them with just a couple clear and obvious avenues to go to. It's going to be up to you. It's going to be up to the style that you choose to portray your world in. And there are no right or wrong answers. As long as you're all going to have fun with it, especially you, game master, daring to do something like this, you better have fun with it. Because if you're not, why are we really doing this? If it's just stressful for you, if you're really intimidated by what you're trying to do, it's good to try things that are a little bit beyond your comfort level. But if you're jumping in the deep end, there's no shame in just reeling it back a little bit and telling a traditional adventure until you're ready to embrace the chaos of what a sandbox might be. So, I hope this answers a lot of people's questions about what exactly the sandboxes are that we talk about, and maybe to, again, qualify them for people who have a really wild idea of what they might be that just isn't accurate in the main. So, I hope that this conversation stimulates you to the point where you talk about a sandbox that you enjoyed being in and leave that in the comments, or one that you ran and ran well, or the flaming disaster that was a sandbox you tried. I've had a couple flame out on myself before too. It's okay, it happens. But if you want to talk about it in the comments, I'd be happy to read about it, maybe comment back, and perhaps even make a video. We can talk about these things. I will talk more about sandboxes because this is only touching over the surface of a sandbox, and I will probably at some point even relate my approach to a sandbox campaign, building one, executing it, and finishing it. Because, again, I believe that all campaigns deserve to have an ending. I've never believed in the perpetual campaign that goes on forever. But we'll talk. And you'll only know about that if you come back, which means all of the usual things. Feel free to like, subscribe, notify yourself if I come, share with other people who maybe not know or understand exactly what does go into a sandbox. They have their idea, but maybe that's not necessarily accurate. So feel free. But I do hope you come back. That's why I do these videos. I want to do these for you, and I want you to enjoy them. So whatever I can do, contact me. We'll have that talk, and I will be happy to make more videos for you. And I hope to see you there, because I can see you. And if I do, I hope that between that next video and now, that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, to play some games, to have some fun. But stay safe out there, my friends. Until that next time, farewell.